3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Okay. Understood. All right.
Okay, give it a shot.
Hi, and welcome back, Volts Nation. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties, but hopefully we have resolved some of our issues. And so, again, just to leave off, where I began, I am Angela Clark, the principal of Ridge Community High School. And I'm very proud to be back and serve the community. And then, for the purpose of tonight, I'd like to introduce a few people that will be helping to answer questions and concerns that you have. To my left is Amanda Robinson. She is the APC in charge of curriculum here at Ridge Community High School. And I know that there are several questions and concerns concerning schedules out there. So we hope to address some of those tonight. I'd also like to introduce some of my other assistant principals who, are on the video and are possibly joining virtually. And that is Greg Lewis, who is our APA. So he's in charge of facilities and setting up the campus to ensure that we are practicing the CDC guidelines for the reopening process. Mr. Josh Hackett, who is our assistant principal, who deals primarily with discipline working with our choice program and our deans. So if you have questions concerning dress code or any of the student conduct procedures, we can address any of those questions, and you may be dealing with Mr. Hackett. And then lastly, our assistant principal, Karen Johnson, who deals also with scheduling and the actual courses of Ridge Community High School. She is, very involved in the CTE programs and the different special course offerings of fine arts and the academies that we offer on campus. So she will be able to answer any of your questions as well. Behind the scenes tonight, got some very talented teachers that I get the privilege of working with, every day. And so that is Miss Brenna Hanley, who is, working with us to stream this tonight. and Miss Chelsea Pace, who is going to be here to answer some Schoology questions, and then Mr. Timothy Frost, who pretty much does a little bit of everything around the campus when it comes to our social media and the Ridge app, which we'll be referring to here in a little bit, and our school webpage. So without further ado, we can turn it over to some questions and, be as helpful as we possibly can this evening.
Perfect. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. We had well over 150 people submit questions this morning on the app alone. So we're going to go through some of them. A lot of them were everybody is sharing the same concerns and have similar questions. So we're going to try to kind of consolidate them as best we can. So Ms. Clark, to kind of get us started, we have several people that are concerned about bus schedules and how to get bus schedules. Could you talk a little bit about the process of getting to know your buses, or maybe transportation in general for those students that would need to ride the bus to and from school?
Sure. I believe that the transportation, in some cases, the bus number is located on the student portal that you can refer there on. It's a little transportation tab. If you are having difficulty finding it there as well, you can reach out to the transportation office by going to the Polk County website and dialing that hotline number. I'll be looking it up here in a few minutes so that we can put that out there for everybody to have. I believe we have posted it perhaps a little bit on the, is it posted on the website, our website?
Yeah, it's actually posted on the virtual orientation site. So on the Ridge app, if you hit orientation, you can scroll down and find it there as well.
So, that is there for you to contact to find out where those buses come into your neighborhoods and so on. And then as far as transportation here, just one special thing about the buses is there are going to be different loading and unloading procedures, to follow those CDC guidelines. So please, make sure that you're checking the Polk County website for those, as well as there will be assigned seats on the buses. They will be loading them in a certain order to limit the interaction between the students on the buses. Face coverings will be required on all the transportation buses. Please make sure that you're checking out the Polk County website and our website to see those guidelines as well.
Perfect.
Quick, can I interject? This is just for our students and teachers and parents who are watching the YouTube live chat. Please be mindful that there are parents who are trying to get accurate and valid information. And while you may think it's funny to send different types of messages within the chat, it is very hard to give those who actually need information. So please just be mindful of that while you're writing your comments, because while they can see, we are not able to answer valid questions.
Thank you. Ms. Robinson or Ms. Clark, lots of people are concerned about schedules and schedule changes. Could you talk a little bit about that process and kind of where we're at and what students can expect between now and Monday?
Sure. We are aware that schedules have gone live in Portal. So a lot of our students are looking at those and questioning they're missing a class, they have a double class, they have what have you. The process right now is we had to take a master and turn it into 2 master schedules for 2 different schools, e-school and campus. So what you're seeing is not your final schedules at this point, it's where we are. So we are working to move and balance classes, make things available on campus, make things available on e-school. So as those are moving around, you're going to notice that your schedule changes quite a bit. At this point, I wouldn't consider what you're looking at all as your schedule. We're going to work on tweaking those out throughout the weekend as close as possible to get come Monday morning. So on Monday morning, you'll be able to look at that and know that that is your schedule. When it comes to schedule changes, we are going to be very tight in our schedule to maintain both e-school and campus learning. So there will be very, very limited options for schedule changes. We will look at graduation requirements that need to be met for our seniors. That'll give priority. And anyone who may be incorrectly placed. So those will be given priority. And if we are able at any time based on our numbers to make those changes. We will do that shortly after school starts, post that to our website, give you a procedure for requesting that, and then responding for that. But right now, the most important thing to remember is it just went live on your side, and we are diligently working on ours to fix that, all the things that we need to rearrange. So keep in mind, there are lots of changes yet to be made.
Also on schedules, if I may, Mr. Frost, just be mindful, parents and students, that, due to the offerings of both eSchool and campus learning on our campus, some of the extended course offerings, may be only available campus, may be only available eSchool. So, there's a variety of things that go on behind the scenes. And so while we are trying to accommodate everyone's needs, in a time, that is unprecedented like it is right now in terms of us going back to school, we do have to make some sacrifices compared to what it was before. But we are trying to schedule, as close to our students' wishes as possible.
Awesome. Speaking of eSchool, lots of questions about how eSchool is going to work, how are students going to be expected to communicate with teachers, what time does eSchool start and stop, what supplies do students need for those that are enrolled in eSchool. So I'm kind of throwing a lot at you. So, what apps and websites do they need for eSchool? So could you talk a little bit about what the eSchool process is going to look like and what students should be expected in that for those that are enrolled in eSchool?
Sure, perfect. We do have a good percentage of our population that is enrolled in eSchool, and we want them to be a part of the Bolt Nation just as much as our campus students are. So it's going to be very important for those students to have the resources that they need in order to log in properly come Monday morning. For our students and parents, eSchool will run on the same time period as our campus school, so it mirrors what's going on campus. So at 7 a.m., that first period block will start, and that first period block will run the same amount of time that the first period block runs here at Ridge Community. Teachers will have a variety of options in order to work with their students. Primarily, the main format in which students will communicate with their students is through ClassLink and Schoology, which was described on the orientation video. So, if you have questions about how to log in to Schoology, through the ClassLink links on the school webpage, please make sure that you check out that video. But, through Schoology and, Ms. Pace and, Ms. Hanley, Mr. Frost can answer some questions in greater detail coming from the teacher side. But typically a student would log into ClassLink, a little before 7 in the morning, log into Schoology so that it is open, for them to see. When they open Schoology, they will see their classes listed there. They simply click on the class that they would attend first. So if they attend, Ms. Pace's class first period, they would click on her class, and then, Ms. Pace would be able to communicate with the student in real time, via class discussions, via live streaming, via email, and communication through the app and different assignments, during that time period. That class would extend that whole entire time. And then there would be a 7-minute break. And then, the third period block, all right, for the Navy days would begin. So, it follows the bell schedule that the campus school does. It is expected that all students would attend each period. Attendance will be taken each period. Grades will be given each period, just like the student would be attending here on campus. I'll turn it over now maybe to Ms. Pace. If you have anything further to add, in terms of eSchool and Schoology app that may be beneficial to our students.
The biggest thing with eSchool and Schoology is that Schoology app works best, not as an app. It works best as a website. If you have the app on your phone, it may open, it may let you log in, but it does not mean that it's going to accurately work. So what we want you to understand is that while your teacher may post the assignment on Schoology, the app won't necessarily support you submitting this assignment, and submitting it could result in an error. This is going to be something that we all are learning together, so we want you to understand that, but Schoology is best accessed through ClassLink. Any questions you have, please direct them to your teachers who are your e-learning or e-school teacher so that they can answer those questions.
But, just to summarize a little bit, it is important that if you are enrolled in eSchool, to be, at your computer, dressed and ready to go at 7 a.m. on Monday morning. Also, I just offer a word of caution. Obviously we had some technical difficulties right before, this activity this evening. In Teams meeting that I have held here on our campus, we've had some technical difficulties. So as an eSchool student or parent, you may run into those issues where maybe your internet gets a little wonky, or ours does on our end. So just be patient, and your teachers will work with you in terms of ways to communicate, to let each other know if you are having those technical difficulties and not being able to communicate effectively.
And you did mention supplies, and what we're looking at for both campus and eSchool are starting with the basic supplies that you'll need: paper, pencil, pens, those kind of things. Obviously, if you're at eSchool, you have a little flexibility in what works for you and organizing your materials and getting that together. If you're taking math or science, you will need access to a calculator, possibly in geometry if you need things like protractors, those kind of things. Make sure that you have the basics, and then wait until you meet with your teachers. If there are things in particular you need for that class, they will let you know. But we are asking all of our kids, start with the basics, make sure you're prepared, and we're going to start this year off together and work through it.
Really quick, a comment or question I'm seeing quite a bit is, my student has courses in Schoology, however, they're not showing up. These courses will not show up until Monday when school actually starts. So they are live on the 24th starting at 7 a.m. Your student should log in on Monday if they are in eSchool and start working at that time. And remember, Monday is only 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 7th periods.
Perfect. Another good question that came in from the app, Ms. Clark, is will eSchool require end of the year testing? And if it does, do we know if it will be online or in person, or do we know anything about testing for eSchool and on-campus students that students and families can expect here in the coming year?
Yes, sir. Both campus and eSchool students will be required to do the state testing for graduation requirements. So the testing retakes begin here in the middle of September. As we are coming up, we will be, sending out information, through the different classes that the students attend through their focus email about, signing up or scheduling for testing. It's not going to be really a sign up. It'll be similar where we'll schedule them, similar to if they were on campus. My understanding is that eSchool students would be coming to campus for testing, for state testing, not necessarily for class testing, but for state testing like the FSA exam, the Algebra 1 exam, and EOC, and so on. So that will all be coming out and communicated at a later date once that gets pinned down in terms of how that process will look logistically. But obviously we will be following the guidelines that are given to us by the Department of Ed for the state of Florida on how to conduct those here on our campus so that everyone remains safe.
And those students in eSchool will continue to do what's called progress monitoring. They will not have to report to campus for that. We'll go through that with them, and they'll be able to complete that in the eSchool setting.
Awesome. Awesome. Lots of people are wondering that if they start the year on Monday enrolled in e-school and they decide after a couple weeks that they maybe want to come back to campus, or they're starting to feel safer and they want to come back to campus, will parents be able to change their students' enrollment status, say 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, a day in, who knows, to either A, go from e-school to campus learning, or B, go from campus learning to e-learning?
Sure.
Do we know how any of that is going to work here in the coming year?
Sure. Obviously, we have wanted to let it to be a student choice or parent choice in terms of how they would come back to school, and that remains to be true. However, there are some timelines that are suggested to the parents and the students, and that is primarily for grading purposes and the continuity of the curriculum. And that is for students that are enrolled in e-school and wish to return back to campus, or vice versa, that would be done at the quarter. All right. And then those that are on Polk virtual and decide that they want to come back to their brick and mortar school or e-school, then that would be done at the semester. So those are kind of the guidelines that we're suggesting. Obviously, we have new students enrolling at different times and so on. So we will do our best to accommodate the needs of the student and the parent. But those are the guidelines given to us by the district at this time.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm kind of trying to get all the e-school questions done here first. I'm trying to group them all together. So a couple students I saw in the chat here, one student said, how do I know if I'm enrolled in e-school? And then another question from the chat was, will students be required to have webcams? Do we know that information?
That is a good question that
There are some good questions coming in.
Okay. I will look into the webcam question. I am not 100% positive on that. And I see Miss Johnson on here, Miss Robinson, and you guys may correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there's a little E on the student's name in student portal, if they are actually enrolled in e-school. So they can look for that little mark in terms of their names on their student portal or parent portal, for confirmation that they're enrolled in e-school.
Awesome. Several students are worried about how it's going to work with e-school, and not only just like extracurricular activities, but also one student specifically was asking about like band instrument rentals and things like that. How is that going to work with students learning remotely, but also needing to be involved in things like JROTC or band, chorus, things like that?
According to the instructional continuity plan, all right, that is out there on the Polk County website, I believe it is on page 3 of the document. It's either 3 or 5, I can't remember exactly, but it's kind of a chart that provides, the 3 different options that Polk County offered, which is, campus, school, e-school, and Polk virtual. And it'll list down the left-hand side on the chart about what they can participate in or what they're restricted. So in most cases, students can still participate in extracurricular activities. I just read today that they're going to work with students in terms of rental of band equipment,
Right.
And so on. So there are options for our e-school students to still be involved if they choose to do so, because they are students of Ridge Community High School, and we want them to be involved as much as they feel comfortable with, and as much as they want to.
Awesome. Another question, kind of transition a little bit here. For both e-school and on-campus students, do we have any information about how when and how students will be able to apply for dual enrollment opportunities?
Right. And I'm looking at Ms. Robinson as well, in case I say something that is not entirely accurate. We're trying to process a lot of information here, so please forgive me. But dual enrollment opportunities are still going to be available for our students. And typically those will take place where students can sign up for those once we get into the school year and get it started. It's usually about a week or so once we get in. There are, certain requirements as far as GPA, and as far as, testing requirements with the PERT, and things of that nature that the students would be able to take, but they need to communicate make sure their school counselor is aware that they want those dual enrollment opportunities, so that, when the time is appropriate and the announcements are made and our e-school students we'll figure out a way for them to get the announcements just like what our campus students get, so that they're aware of all the opportunities. But we'll want to make it and, make sure that all students know that opportunity and the timelines that Polk State College requires in order to get signed up for those dual enrollment classes.
I think the biggest thing is to make sure you communicate that directly with your counselor. You can email them so they're aware, and they can make sure that the student is made aware at the time that those do open up.
Really quick, a question that I'm seeing a lot is students who either, one, do not have their student portal login information, they forgot their password, they don't know it, they're locked out. What are these students supposed to do to be able to log in?
We have that link.
Yeah, there is a link, if they don't know their login information, but that's for the class link and things of that nature on our website, that we are, they're completing a form so that we can get them the login information they need. As far as student portal is concerned, if you don't have an account, or a parent doesn't have a parent portal account, you can sign up for it online. On the Polk County website, but you will need a PIN from the school. So you would need to contact us here at the school in order to get that PIN information for parent portal.
Several people have asked about block scheduling. Would you be able to explain the block scheduling and the rotation days a little bit? Specifically, one parent asked about the e-learning rotation days. I know we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but could you explain block scheduling, the reason we changed to block scheduling, how students can be expected to, or what the expectations are for them to transition to that type of schedule?
Sure. Block scheduling is basically where you still have your 7 classes, but on every other day you would attend, 3 new classes. All right. So for example, we have Navy and Silver days to coincide with our school colors. On the Navy day, you would attend your odd numbered classes. All right. So block 1, block 3, block 5, and block 7. On the next day, which in this case would be Tuesday, all right, you would attend your Silver days. All right. Your Silver days are your even numbered classes. All right. With the exception of 5th period. So you would attend 2nd block, 4th block, 5th block, and 6th block. 5th block is on both Navy and Silver days to accommodate our 4 lunches. There were several reasons why we opted to do block scheduling this year, even before the pandemic, caught us all. We were looking at going to block scheduling just to provide more class time for our students and to accommodate our ever-growing population, because it obviously lessens the amount of transition time that you have between classes. But it also gives our students and our teachers opportunities to expand on some of the projects that they're doing in class as well, and to dive a little deeper because they have a longer block of time versus the 49 minutes that they had of seeing classes every day. So on the block schedule, we are doing a straight alternating block. So, starting on Monday with the Navy day, every other day will be, Navy, Silver, Navy, Silver. So you'll see the odd number classes and then the even numbered classes. The classes are approximately, I believe, 90 minutes, per class. And, it provides that, extended time, and the eSchool students would be following that as well.
One parent asked about absences for eSchool students, if they have appointments or anything. Could you talk about, the difference between absences in physical school and eSchool, if there is any difference between those?
There will not be any difference. Our teachers that are teaching eSchool classes will take attendance daily, just like our teachers on campus. So it is, obviously required that the students attend so many class periods and so on. So again, class that will start on Monday morning, when first block meets, those first block teachers will be taking attendance for their e-school classes and their campus classes. And there's a couple of different ways in which our e-school teachers can, monitor for attendance. They can, obviously look and see the computer activity, by some of the students, and then some of them will actually have meetings where they can, see their students participating as well.
And just to point out, a lot of our parents are thinking that they've worked in virtual classes before, like Polk Virtual or Florida Virtual. And when you're working in that setting, the student can work flexible hours, times, at their own pace, that kind of thing. When you're looking at e-school, please keep in mind that you are in synchronous learning just like we are here on campus. So you are in that same time frame. You are rotating that schedule. You are expected to be there and attend. And if you're absent, you're making up work, and that those absences will count as normal as they would on campus.
Several people. I'm sorry, Chelsea, go ahead.
Question receiving a lot. ROTC, does it still exist? Which I know the answer is yes. Question is for clubs, not sports, that do after school activities. What are those going to look like? Are they going to still exist?
We've had several questions of that, even from your sponsors. So teachers have asked me this, as this is our first week back. And, typically my response is that, our athletics are getting started again as practices and sports open back up on the 24th, and we're starting games and activities. But there's a certain protocol that goes along with those extracurriculars in terms of temperature checks, in terms of, monitoring for symptoms, and so on of COVID. And so there's a lot of details that the FHSAA put in place in order to keep those student athletes and coaches safe. So similar measures would need to be applied, all right, for our clubs and organizations as well. So things like ROTC or Key Club or Spanish Club and the different wonderful organizations that we have on campus, we'll have to look at how those clubs can safely meet, but at the same time continue to monitor the well-being of the students and teachers that wish to participate in them. So that while they won't open up, next week per se, be looking for them to, open up as we get those procedures in place.
One more question really quick that I'm seeing a lot. For e-school students who are obviously e-learning, whenever we have the need for them to come on campus, be it state testing and such, how is student IDs going to work? Are they going to be given a student ID, or will they receive a visitor ID?
Good question. My first thought is that they would have a student ID, because we've received those, especially for our returning students already. And we would look at getting our incoming ninth graders, obviously one as well. But it would require, a photo and so on. So there will be some logistical planning that has to go into to get those students those picture IDs. But that's a good question, and one I will make note of so that we can address.
One question that came in from the app is specifically about noticing that their freshman student is scheduled in JROTC, the Leadership Class 1, and was wondering if that is a requirement for freshmen, and also wondering what they would learn in that class.
Sure. Typically, yes, we do assign our freshmen to that JROTC Academy, not for military training per se, all right, is what many people would think, but for the fundamental skills that the program provides. And, obviously, the classes, as you get acquainted with them as well, are more than marching around on the track and more than wearing a uniform and so on. It provides the students a group or a belonging at the very beginning of their school career, and gets them associated with people that they may not necessarily have worked with before, in terms of upperclassmen who can tell them a little bit about the school, a little bit about the clubs and organizations that they can get involved in as well. Within the foundation of the classes, it also teaches organizational skills and leadership skills, and basically how to succeed in the high school curriculum. So the curriculum that is involved with it is not about, wanting everybody to join the Army per se, but it is about, how to structure your life. All right, so that you're dressing for success. All right, for school in terms of the uniform, because that's what the major concept of that is, as well as how to organize and prioritize your life so that your academics don't suffer because you're involved in some of the other organizations around campus. Now, if there are reasons, and when we basically deal with these on a case-by-case basis in terms of not wishing to be a part of the JROTC program, we will meet with the student or the parent and discuss those reasons. And then, it's not necessarily, everybody has to, like a drop dead requirement, but it is part of the program that we instill here at Ridge Community, just because we have seen the benefit of it and, the growth of our students from that program.
And there's a lot in that curriculum that also focuses on community and community involvement and how to be a productive member of the community and things that you can take part in. And so it kind of builds them into that in their high school years here, but it also instills that for something they walk away with and they want to use that in their future.
Perfect. I've seen, and I know I've seen this in the chat a couple of times as well. There are some questions about specifically with seniors and having a full schedule and maybe kind of comparing to the early release program that we have had in years past. Is that still a thing? Whereas if there's seniors that have met their graduation requirements, they don't need a full course load of 7 classes. Is there some flexibility there as far as the scheduling is concerned with those students that are applied to that?
This year there is not. We researched a little bit about the early release of the schedules, and we don't have an OJT or on-the-job training or cooperative education program here at Ridge Community High School. Many schools that offer that opportunity that we may be compared to, and we're utilizing, have that program where students are working towards a completion of a program where working outside of school is a part of that program. And so there is a teacher that would be involved where that they would monitor the students' work times, go to the job site and, see the functions of that student at the job site in order to, be a completer of the program. We don't offer that at Ridge Community. And so therefore, we need to schedule the students in all 7 classes because we are a full-time public high school.
Sorry, go ahead. Space.
2 different ones that are coming up frequently, which is I am not enrolled in eSchool and I would really like to transfer into eSchool. And then the other one that has come up a lot is the question about social distancing and how are we going to handle social distancing at our school?
Okay, the first question I'll address is if you want to change which venue you're in, say you're on campus and you want to do eSchool or vice versa, you're in eSchool and you decided you want to come back. What you need to do is contact the school, let them know you want to make that change. They will ask you for the student name, different information, a couple of things they'll record, and make sure you state which way you would like to make your change. And that will be given to our terminal operator that handles that, and we can get that handled for you at this time. We don't have a designated cutoff time, but I will warn people, the changing is what's causing a lot of the issues with finalizing schedules. Because we get it set and then 50 or 60 more, and then we have to change something to an eSchool or to a campus. So please, if you're going to make that change, please do it as soon as possible. If you just call our school, they can take your information and we can get that changed for you. The difference is if you are enrolled in Polk Virtual School, that is not associated with Ridge Community High School. So if you are enrolled in Polk Virtual and you want to make the change, when you contact us, let us know you're in Polk Virtual, and they will let you know what that process is that you would need to do to make that change.
As far as social distancing here on campus, we have several measures that are in place. First of all, our campus classes are capped at 25 students max. And, you know, we seem to be meeting that goal in terms of that. In the classrooms, the students are all facing one direction. So in years past, you may have had desks or tables moved together and 4 students sitting around a cluster of tables, all working cooperatively with one another. That is no longer the case within our classrooms. Typically, all students are set in rows where they're all facing the same direction and they're spaced as far apart as we can feasibly make it in order to fit that number of students in the classrooms. We also have one-way hallways. So if you watch the orientation video, you see that, you know, there is, you know, one-way travel, all right, or traffic pattern in those hallways. And also exit and entry doors into the buildings. So there's one way in, the other way out, all right, so that people do not pass each other going face to face. We have incorporated 4 lunches instead of our usual 3, just due to the fact that we wanted less numbers in the cafeteria area. When our students go to the cafeteria this year, they will have a different traffic pattern into the cafeteria where they'll all be flowing in one way around the cafeteria for a grab and go style lunch and breakfast. In the cafeteria itself, all the students will be facing in the same direction with a limited number of students at each table. Under the pavilion at the picnic tables, we will be limiting the number of students to 3 at those picnic tables around that area, to also, you know, promote social distancing. One of the biggest changes that I think will impact our students is the, you know, not being able to gather in the courtyard like they have in the past. When students enter campus or when they exit campus or between class periods, they're going to be asked to go directly to class without stopping and gathering in groups in the courtyard. So I know that is, you know, obviously it puts a damper on the socialization that many students enjoy, you know, during lunches and between classes. But unfortunately, you know, we have to, you know, maintain that social distancing at all times. So we will be ushering those students to class. So, you know, for example, in the mornings, they get off the bus, they will grab their grab and go breakfast, and then they will go straight to their first period block or second period block on a silver day in order to eat their breakfast in their classrooms, you know, away from the big mass that used to be in the cafeteria.
We have a lot of people asking about kind of those first day schedules, maybe students that don't have their portal information, students that aren't sure where to go. Can you talk a little bit about what Monday morning is going to look like for students, especially those new to our campus and those incoming 9th graders that really haven't had the opportunity to be with us for an in-person orientation anyway? Sure.
On Monday morning, the students will enter campus no earlier than 6:30. So that will be a change as well. So 6:30 would be the time that people can be dropped off or released from the buses onto campus. At that time, they will come, the majority of them will come to the courtyard to pick up a grab and go breakfast. There will be some signage in the courtyard for those students that don't have portal. So that they can identify who their first period teacher is and where to go for their first period. Many of our teachers that have the first block, which is their planning time, as well as district staff, as well as all of our administration and deans, will be out directing them in terms of where to go, either to get their first period teacher's name or to that first period class. Once they get into that first period class, they will have a paper schedule that will have that schedule on there for them.
Several people have asked Ms. Clark about wearing masks. Do people have to wear masks, or do students have to wear masks at all times while on campus?
At all times while on campus. I mean, as you can see, Ms. Robinson and I are still here on campus this evening. and we are in close proximity to one another. All right, so we are not isolated within our own offices. So we are wearing masks, and each, everywhere on campus, unless you are physically eating, which would be, at lunchtime, you are going to be required to wear a mask. So at PE, there will be times when you're asked to wear a mask, even though you are at PE. Obviously, there's times in some of those classes where it's a little less restrictive, but we have guidelines that we're following with that as well. But just a general rule, if you are on campus, on a bus, anything associated with the school, it is going to be required, adults and students, to wear masks at all times.
I'm seeing several questions come in through the chat about senior activities, and one student said, "Are we going to be able to have any fun on campus this year?"
I hope so.
I can say, I hope so too. I can say, as the senior sponsor, we're going to follow all the guidelines from the district and the state and the federal government as far as gatherings and whatnot, and work with Ms. Clark and the admin team to plan those events as if they were normally going to happen. But Ms. Clark, do you maybe have any more insight on those senior activities or the fun things that we do on campus here, on what those might look like or be able to look like here in our new world?
Right. Unfortunately, I have very limited information, if it any really concrete, in order to share with our students and parents at this time. A lot of the things that we are implementing back at the school, primarily is focused on academics right now. Like I said, we just this past week, it was decided that we were going to start with sports and have spectators with sports. So that's a good sign for some of those other fun things that we like to do on a high school campus. We'll just have to wait and see about, the different types of guidelines that still can come out. I mean, if you watch the news daily, you see the changes in policy that happens. And so we'll just have to, stay tuned. And, obviously, if, it is proven that we are safe to go and to have the activities like homecoming and prom and grad bash and all the fun things that we typically like to have for our seniors, then we will do our best. We're also looking at ways to, kind of give some, perks to some of our student body, through different things that we can offer on campus. And I won't allude to those, online just yet, as I would like to work with my class officers and such on those, at a little later time.
And I've had the question asked a lot on the telephone, so just throw it in here, that eSchool seniors also participate in everything that we do. So if there is prom, those other activities and things that are going on that are all senior activities and that stuff, yes, eSchool students are participating in all of those things too. So make sure you understand that.
I do just want to clarify one question that came in a couple times, and I also saw it in the chat about school counselor assignments. And folks, if you haven't downloaded the RCHS app yet, I highly recommend it. It's going to be the best place to get all of the most up-to-date information, as well as our school website. We're updating that constantly. I know that for a fact because I'm the one that's doing it. So we're keeping everything as up-to-date as possible for you, to try to get the messages that need to be communicated out there. But for school counselor assignments specifically, which I've seen again a couple times, go to the website. The website is up to date right now. I will add the letter breakdown, the last name breakdown into the app before I leave here tonight, so that will be available on the app for students and families as well. So if you need a counselor for any reason, that is there. However, just be aware that, as we've said earlier, and Ms. Clark, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but counselors will not be able to respond to any scheduling requests or schedule changes. There will be a completely separate process for that. But again, for any other reason, if you need the counselors, that information will be up to date, except for scheduling. That will be a completely separate process.
And that is correct. Just to reiterate, I can't say that word very well. Reiterate, a couple of things, in terms of your school counselors, as Ms. Robinson, explained earlier. With this process, we split to 2 master schedules, so that is taking up the majority of their time. We will be addressing, schedule changes and that kind of thing at a later date. However, we also understand that there may be some anxiety involved in returning to school, and so on. So if you need a school counselor, on that level, obviously they are still here and still ready to serve. But in terms of scheduling requests and things of that nature, unless it's a graduation requirement concern, we just ask that you be patient and hold off on those until a little bit later.
Ms. Clark, regarding that, I've seen a lot of questions regarding, does e-learning or e-school count as an online credit for graduation?
Oh, no, I would not.
That's a really good question.
All right. And I'll get further clarification on that, but typically, a Polk virtual class would, all right, but eSchool, since it is through us, I would have to check on that to see whether it would be on that requirement.
One more question I've seen quite a bit, which is regarding students who have previously have tested positive for COVID. The concern is coming back to school. What is the requirement for students who have or will be testing positive for COVID?
Okay. Basically, we have several different checkpoints around our campus when students arrive, where we will be doing temperature checks. We will also, have students, attest, all right, at the beginning of the school year to, if they are experiencing symptoms of a fever and the other different signs of COVID-19. Obviously, if a student does come into contact, with a close family member or someone that, they have been in contact with, for an extended period of time that does come down with COVID, there are procedures and protocol that we'll be going over with the students, in terms of how to report that, who to report that to, and then the next steps. If we do find that a student or a staff member has tested positive, then obviously it will be released. All right. So the public and the students and the staff will be made aware. And there is a procedure that we as administration would follow in terms of reporting that instance, not only to our district supervisors, but to our community. And then obviously there's a set protocol on the procedures that we would follow. Mm-hmm.
One more thing, I know that this was discussed, which is our social distancing guidelines. During transitions, just because I want to make sure if it wasn't stated, it is what does it look like social distancing during transitions?
Okay.
Is there more time allowed to go between classes?
Right now, there are 7 minutes to go between classes. Another big difference that students will notice is none of the student classes are out in the portables this year. All right, so we are the furthest back on campus that you would go would be Building 12 and the Ag building. So there's less distance to travel. Now there are one-way entrances and exits to Buildings 2, 3, and 12, as well as in Buildings 6 and 4. So you do have to follow those. But as I stated before, there's going to be no congregating outside Building 2, in the pavilion area, in the courtyard, or in the hallways. It's a matter of traffic moving continuously. So the 7 minutes should be a sufficient amount of time in order to do that, even with the one-way entrances and exits. It will be a trial period, I guess you would say, come Monday and Tuesday, as we will look at the efficiency of the movement of campus to ensure that, everybody is moving safely and effectively from one place to another. But there would be a one-way traffic pattern around campus that would limit that face-to-face interaction.
And that also includes the stairwells. So those will flow in a singular direction, and they'll be able to see which way those are going according to the entrance and exits of the doorways as well. So we do know that large numbers, we got stuck a lot on the stairwells. So it does flow in a one-way direction on those. So that will make that flow a lot faster as well.
I'm seeing some questions, Ms. Clark, about kind of common areas such as the media center, the restrooms during passing period, as we all know, sometimes those get a little bit crowded. how is that all going to work as far as controlling that? And again, as we said previously, maintaining that social distancing in those areas throughout.
Right. In the common areas, such as the media center, we will not be having classes go to the media center per se, or being, having students go there before school or after school or at lunches. So that will be restricted, just due to the fact that we cannot have groups of people within the media center. In terms of the restrooms, we will have teachers, be monitors in terms of the number of people, to go into those restrooms that are volunteering to supervise a bit, as well as our deans and our administration, checking those regularly to make sure that those are not overcrowded as well during those passing times.
Ms. Clark, a very good question. A student asked, due to the traffic patterns, what about our students who are in wheelchairs and have the need to use like elevators and such?
There's still accessibility to the elevators, and so on. So, if a student, needs to use an elevator, for injury purposes or accommodations in a wheelchair, that's still certainly going to be allowed for them. And, those would be, exceptions that would be made. And then we would work with the teachers that are closest to those elevators and to those doors to accommodate that need.
And then the other one I've seen a lot of is masks and students with ailments that prohibit the ability to wear a mask, i.e. asthma or some other medical condition.
Mm-hmm. In terms of that, masks are required on campus. If a student has a medical issue, then we ask that they provide that medical documentation, and we will look for alternatives. We are also, obviously face shields will be worn by some of our staff, and if they are worn by students as well, that is more than welcome. But we will handle those on a case-by-case basis with that medical documentation on what we need to do to accommodate that student's needs.
And along the similar way, I saw some questions about maybe students that don't have those ailments, but maybe are just refusing to wear the masks. Is there any kind of enforcement that will be taking place as far as the undocumented refusal to wear a mask on campus?
Right. Typically that's going to be addressed, and the first part of the school week, all right, next week we'll be getting used to the process, but if a student blatantly refuses to wear a mask, it will be noted as insubordination and refusal to follow the procedures. They will visit most likely the choice room or the deans or an administrator. We'll be working with that student to determine why they're refusing to wear the mask, and perhaps each school as an option if they don't want to wear the mask, and some different alternatives for them to get their education. But just as the counties and states have put different mandates in, Polk County School Board is requiring masks to be worn at all their facilities, so we will be enforcing that policy.
Mr. Frost,
yes.
Is this video able to be left up after so that parents and students can rewatch to get answers that they are looking for?
Yes, this live stream will be archived on our YouTube page, so it'll be available forever. The orientation video that was put out earlier today will be available forever as well. So everything that's related to this school year will be left up there to view anytime anyone would please. Yes. I am seeing other questions, or I saw just one actually about lockers. Will lockers be available for students to use this year?
Not this year. No, they will not.
What about in PE?
In
Is that the same thing as well?
There are some different circumstances for that, but it will be limited. And obviously, we don't want students to share and so on. So there may be some restrictions on that as well. It's something we'll have to look into. But as far as PE, there won't be the changing of clothes, like there have been in years past. So the need for the locker may not exist once they get in there and meet with their PE teacher to see the logistics of their PE class.
Ms. Clark, a question I've seen quite a bit as well. Is there a dress code for E school students?
Oh, good question. Obviously, there is going to be a dress code for those that are attending campus. For those that are on e-school, we ask that you also dress appropriately. I know it'd be fairly easy to get up and be in your pajamas and just flip on the computer. However, we expect that you would be dressing appropriately from your houses to attend, the classes. So we would ask, just to make sure that your tops are appropriate, and we will be looking for, I guess indecent, possible violations of the code of conduct in terms of the video streaming and things of that nature. So there is a proper protocol to be followed by our e-school students as well, and dress code being one of them.
And that also goes for your setting, like not laying out in your bed, looking at your laptop, doing those kind of things. Make it an appropriate setting where you're working from as well.
Several students have asked about lunches and the corresponding fifth period blocks with eSchool. And several eSchool students are worried, will they even get the lunch period? Could you just hit on that one more time for folks?
Sure. When we schedule lunches here, we will go by different departments or buildings. And so our eSchool teachers that have students during that time, that lunch will be during that time as well. So that'll all be communicated in terms of a lunch schedule that will be sent out very, very shortly. But our eSchool students and our campus students will receive, the same lunch time, that they would if they were to be here on campus.
A student asked, do they need to wear their mask while e-learning?
It depends on where they are. In terms of that, if you'll notice on the video here, Miss Pace and Miss Hanley and Mr. Frost are isolated. So they do not have, their masks on. Whereas Miss Robinson and I are in close proximity, we have our masks on. So while it's not a requirement, and you may be in the house with your family where you don't wear a mask, and so on, it just depends on the setting in which you're in. If you are in a safe area where you do not need a mask, then by all means, you do not have to wear one just to meet a school rule.
Several people have asked about community service hours. Will there still be community service opportunities available for students to be eligible for Bright Futures and things like that?
Yes, and procedures will apply accordingly with the forms that would need to be filled out, the documentation of the hours, and getting those turned in by certain deadlines, so that all of that will remain intact.
I'm also seeing a couple of things in the chat as well about clarifying eSchool again. Several people, I think, were confused on Schoology, and I just want to recommend, we did put out a video on the orientation side of the website, specifically about accessing Schoology. Schoology is the official learning management system that we're going to use, that all eSchool students will use. So we highly recommend check out that virtual orientation webpage, as well as that video specifically on Schoology. But Ms. Clark, and I know we answered this a little bit earlier, but for those that joined a little bit late, do we know specifically how students will be know if they are enrolled in eSchool or not?
Again, the best way that I would know is on the student end is to check their student portal if they have access to it. It should have a little E next to their name to designate them as an eSchool student. And if they are unsure, then by all means, you can call the school and verify, tomorrow during the office hours, to check the status of that as well.
I do have a question about thinking for the future when we are all able to return back to a normal life and normal schedule. Parent wants to know, will new and ninth grade students be able to get in-person tours at a later date? Maybe if they transition from the eSchool and they want to come back to learning on campus, will we be able to provide them with that in-person tour at the later time or during those transition of enrollment periods.
I would love to be offered that. Yes. I mean, if we were able to open up full out again, I would love to hold a showcase, where in an open house, similar format where students and parents could come back on campus to meet the teachers, to see our campus, to see the different programs and things that we offer. But again, we have to follow those guidelines that are given to us at this time. And so on. And, I want to, state that if there is any apprehension, please, by all means, reach out to us, and we will try to ease, as much of that as we possibly can for students that, are unsure of coming to, our large campus and, but may want to return to face, but not know where their rooms are. I know there's going to be a lot of issues with that on Monday. And, don't stress about being tardy, for first period come Monday morning. We'll get you to your classes and make sure that you know the correct place to go, and we'll have you, meet your first period teacher in plenty of time to have that class, okay?
Ms. Pace, did you have a question? Sorry.
No.
Or Ms. Johnson?
Yes, I do. Just a comment about their schedules and whether or not they are e-school. A way for the student to know that they have an e-school schedule where the displayed room is, where last year it said portable, this year it says virtual. So if they see virtual, then they know that those classes are scheduled as e-school.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
A question I've seen quite a bit recently is the homeroom versus first period. What is homeroom? First period, is it different than it is on Navy Day versus Silver Day? What does that look like?
Gotcha. Homeroom is part of that first block. All right. So whether it be, first period on Navy days or second block on Silver days, it is just a time to get into campus. So, 7 o'clock is still when you need to report to that first period. But that time period of homeroom is built in just to go over announcements and get organized for the day.
Ms. Clark, could you talk a little bit about breakfast procedures in the morning? And I don't recall if we hit on this just yet, but specific cafeteria procedures as far as getting food, those that bring their own lunches. I know you said that all students will be socially distant and face the same direction, but as far as the food service side of things, as well as the lunch service and food service for those that are enrolled in eSchool.
Okay, perfect. As far as getting breakfast on the morning for our campus students, there will be several different kiosks set up around campus at our entry points where students can grab a cold breakfast, all right, something like cereal, et cetera, at those particular locations. Once they pick up, that item, then they would go straight to their first period class. So we are not going to gather in the pavilion or in the cafeteria like we have in years past. There's also going to be a hot breakfast option as well, and that is through the takeout window next to the cafeteria. So if a student prefers to get a hot breakfast, they can go to that window to get the hot breakfast. But again, as soon as they get that hot breakfast, they would go to their first period class to eat it. So again, we are not, socializing, unfortunately, in the pavilion and in the cafeteria, during that breakfast time. At lunchtime, again, there's a one-way pattern into the cafeteria and exiting the cafeteria. So as students don't cross face to face. There are several different options within our cafeteria as well. Most of them, though, will be grab and go of sorts. All right. So there's still some hot options. There's still the salad options, the quick bites lines, and so on. But it will be served in a manner where a student can just grab and then take it to a table. The tables within the cafeteria and in the pavilion area are limited, all right, in terms of seating. So there will be sections of those tables or picnic tables that will be blocked off, all right, to limit the number of students that can sit at those tables or at the picnic tables. If the student wishes to bring their lunch, they wouldn't even have to go into the cafeteria if they choose not to, all right? So they could socially distance out in the courtyard. In comparison, in years past, our numbers at lunch were about 1,000 students per lunch. This year, it'll be about down to about 400. All right, so we will have the space in order to socially distance each other and so on. Just ask for the students and for parents to reiterate to the students to be mindful and listen to administration and the deans as we're out there and following those guidelines that we'll be requesting them to do in terms of social distancing.
Ms. Clark, our SAC president, Mrs. Mitchell, I'm going to call her out. She does a lot for our school, but she asked if, knowing the traffic patterns at our school, and I know we'll be at reduced capacity, but she was concerned that if parents and students are struggling to get into the parking lot or the drop-off line on time, will the 6:30 a.m. campus entrance time possibly be changed, or how will that look like?
We can look at that, but obviously we are anticipating about half of our population. So the traffic patterns, again, we will play that by ear, and of course do what we can to accommodate to make sure that students can get to classes on time. Obviously, since we are sending students straight to class at that 6:30 time. That's why we are saying that 6:30 time, because if they come onto campus, we have to have somewhere to send them where they are not congregating in the courtyard and waiting for classes to open up and so on. So it is part of that social distancing guideline that we are trying to accommodate. Obviously, and she would know, being here at our school for the years that she has been a great partner. That there will be our police officers, out there directing traffic as well as administration. And so we are going to try to get them through as smooth as possible. And we'll just have to see how the beginning of the year holds out to see whether we need to make some adjustments in that time period.
I did.
Really quick, I have a parent asking, and it's a very valid question, which is, my student is doing e-learning. Who's going to be able to see my student at the time that they are in e-learning? Will it be just the teacher, or will it be the teacher and the students?
Good question. I would assume if they are like what we are in a Teams meeting, it may be. Pardon me?
Using Zoom too.
Using Zoom, that it may be possible, and maybe some of my teachers, Ms. Pace or Ms. Hanley or Mr. Frost, you could address that a little bit as well, depending on how you have that set, I guess. Would be that, but I would also say that teachers are going to be inviting the administration to be a part of those e-school classes as well. So in terms of other adults that may go into those classes as well, it would be the administration team here at Ridge. But depending on how the teacher has a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting set up, it may be possible where they would see the different screens of their classmates, in that e-school setting, I would assume. Sorry, I don't have more of a concrete answer on that.
I think we have time for just a handful of more questions, but Ms. Pace, sorry, I cut you off again.
No, you're good. As someone who has been working with the teachers with Schoology, that is going to really be a mostly teacher by themselves in the room teaching digitally through Zoom or Teams. Your teacher will instruct you that way, but it's going to go through Schoology primarily. From there, the only students that will have a classroom with other students present, the camera, if there is a web version, will be on the teacher. And this is something that we have discussed as the best practice. Going forward, this is just how we have said this will work, and this is the best way for it to work.
Ms. Clark, I see a specific question for students that took Algebra 1 last year. and this year they're going to be in geometry. They're worried about the Algebra 1 test. Will those students that were in Algebra 1 or those sophomores last year that had to take the FSA reading, will those tests apply for this year? Or will they have to test for those courses this year?
Yes, they will. So the students that are in geometry this year that had algebra last year but did not sit for that algebra exam will be taking it this year. There will be obviously some remediation and reteaching of some of the major concepts of algebra going on. And, we're still looking at, ways to incorporate that more into the geometry classes, so that those students do feel better prepared for that exam, as that date, comes closer.
Another specific question about advanced placement and advanced placement classes. Can you touch a little bit on how those will look in this environment?
Yeah, there are. We tried to offer as many advanced placement and dual enrollment classes as we can, based on our students' request. There were some courses, unfortunately, that had a very limited number of students' requests in terms of classes. So we had to make a determination, in terms of offering that class and versus of, servicing the rest of the population with a different offering. So there is not the full extent of the classes that we would normally offer just due to the scheduling method that we had to use this year. But we still, tried to accommodate the majority of the AP and dual enrollment needs.
A follow-up question about the testing. A parent asked about if they have to take the graduation requirements, which makes sense. Would they have to take tests such as like biology or geometry that aren't graduation requirements necessarily, but are still typically the grade calculation tests?
I believe so, yes. I believe so. Those are still on tap. Okay. And Karen or Amanda, if you know something different, please jump in.
Yeah, at this time, the answer is yes. We are looking into that as far as the DOE and different requirements and what may be able to change for that. But anything associated with the graduation part and what normally was taken is still on board at this time. And we'll keep those updates as we get them and make sure that we post them and make students and parents aware as changes may occur.
Really quick, is the traffic pattern on the Ridge, the RCHS app?
Did you say is the traffic pattern on the RCHS app?
Yes.
It will be. I have the images. I just haven't had a chance to put them on there yet. It will be there either tonight or tomorrow.
So parents who are looking to drop off, the RCHS app will have the traffic patterns to help alleviate, since we do know that there will be quite a few car riders as a result of their child not wanting their child on the bus and them obviously taking their child to school. So this means that you will want to pay attention to it because you can only access the student drop off in one of two ways. So you will want to be aware of that.
I did see an oddly specific question about police explorers, kind of going along with the guidelines of specific programs, asking when police explorers will resume. And the answer to that question is it'll resume for the scouts in the police department and when they're given clearance, and Officer Heptonstall is the point of contact for that. So if you have any specific questions about police explorers or that particular program, please reach out to Officer Heptonstall. I think I'm almost down to my last question, unless there's some additional ones coming in from the chat. But parking on campus, Ms. Clark, can you talk a little about for those seniors and juniors that are excited to get to drive to school, what parking on campus looks like for them in the coming weeks?
Parking still will be an option for those students that drive. Parking passes will be required still. Just as an identifier of the vehicle in case there's issues out in the student parking lot and so on. We'll be posting all of those instructions to purchase those parking passes as we typically would at the beginning of the school year. Typically there is a one-way pattern out there in that student parking lot, and we typically park Disney style. out there. So, we will have administrators and SROs out there directing traffic on Monday morning and all of every day in terms of the school to address those parking needs. But yes, students will still be permitted to drive to school and park in the student lot.
And I know we talked a little bit earlier about buses and how to get the bus in for information. What about dismissal and the bus loop procedures in general? And I can say that with the app, we do have a channel specifically dedicated to bus changes. So if there are bus changes that come through throughout, the intention is to send push notifications to those that are subscribed to that particular channel on the app. So that will help students figure that out. But as far as the additional bus information for those procedures, Ms. Clark, could you speak a little bit on that?
Yes, we will be looking at staggering dismissal so that not all students are released at one time in order to go to the buses, just to promote social distancing at all times. Typically when students are released to the bus, again, the gathering behind building 2 and in the courtyard to say goodbye to friends for the day is going to be, pushed along so that we don't have that. And they'll be going directly to the bus and ushered to the bus. The procedure of getting on the bus is still the same. There still will be assigned seats in those buses based upon your bus driver and attendants that'll be working with you there. But ultimately we will, the big difference is the socialization time. You'll be directed straight to your bus in order to get on, and then there will be a staggered dismissal based on different sections of campus.
I do have one question that I've seen come up quite a bit from a few different people about e-learning students and replacing electives with dual enrollment. Is that a possibility as far as the scheduling is concerned? I know we talked about dual enrollment and electives a little bit earlier, but it was just an oddly specific question about replacing those electives with dual enrollment. Is that a possibility?
If we have those offerings on campus and it fits into their schedule and they meet the requirements for dual enrollment, then yes, we can look at those options.
Be sure to stay in contact with your counselor for that to make sure that you make them aware.
I think we're just about out of time on the time that we have all allotted in our schedules this evening. Ms. Clark, Ms. Robinson, do you have any closing ideas, closing remarks that you'd like to offer our viewers? And first off, I'd like to thank, I know at one point I think we had about 1,000 people viewing this live stream, and we're down to about half that now, so about 500 people with us. So thank you for joining us. But Ms. Clark, Ms. Robinson, if you care to offer any kind of closing remarks for us.
One thing, just to remind everybody, this is all new to all of us. So if we're all patient and we all just try our best and keep a positive attitude for it, know that there's going to be a learning curve for everybody, staff and students, as well as parents. With e-schools, some of the challenges that may happen in that area, just that as long as we all are patient and we're working towards solutions and things like that. Scheduling, like we said, be patient with it. We're working that through. It's a work in progress, and we're looking forward to a great year. It's just going to look very different for everybody. So we just want everybody to work together towards that, and we know that our school and our staff will.
I would just like to thank everyone for tuning in and for my teachers that helped put this together. Appreciate it. Could have done many of the things we have done this week and in our social media without your help. So value you very much and thank you. And the same with our parent community that's out there, our student body. I'm glad you tuned in, because, communication is key. And we are all in this together. And, to reiterate a little bit of what Ms. Robinson said, there may be some frustrations next week. I understand. And I totally anticipate that, but what we don't get right, we will look to correct, as quickly and as efficiently as possible. But this is new for all of us. Some of our teachers are learning new platforms in a very short amount of time, and they're working hard in order to meet the needs of their students in any way that they possibly can, whether that be e-school or on the campus. And we understand that there's some anxiety that's involved, and so we will do as much as we can to alleviate that in any way that we can. But by all means, if you see or have a concern, please let us know, and give us the opportunity to correct things that we may not do the best right out of the gate. But we'll be working with you in order to make it right.
Well, thank you, Ms. Clark. Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Thank you, Ms. Johnson, Ms. Pace, Ms. Hanley. I think this has hopefully been informative for those that stuck with us. I know it was kind of a lot of questions and a lot of information, but I hope that most of the questions that were submitted got answered. We will still be looking through the questions that were submitted on the app. So if there are still additional questions, you're welcome to submit via the app. We will do our very best to get back to you in a timely manner. But we highly encourage you to review the live stream information that we covered this evening, as well as the orientation video that we put out earlier today. Both are great places for information and answer a lot of the questions that I see still coming through on the app and on the live chat. But thank you all for joining us, and we hope you all have a lovely evening, and we will see you on Monday.
Go Bolts!
Go Bolts!